On the plane, Hao Tian lived up to his image of a highly skilled player and kept silent, did not ask about their destination, and did not make any interactions. Han Zhao saw that he had nothing to do, so he gave him a mission to take care of Bear Cub. Galaxy's details were all very real, especially the look and smell of urine and feces. Flying from the northern continent to the southern continent required a little over half a day. Han Zhao received a call from Hans on the way, saying that old Devon's document filled missing information of their clues, and it was a very important finding. Han Zhao knew that this would affect the next round of the hidden main storyline missions. When the plane landed in the southern continent, Antonio was waiting. Han Zhao saw his rough face as soon as he came out of the plane. "Welcome back, my friend." Antonio laughed out loud and gave Han Zhao a bear hug. The strong odor on his body almost made Han Zhao lose his health points. "Hug a while more and I'd be dead." Han Zhao rubbed his nose with a frown. "Only out for a month, and look what you've done," Antonio said with surprise. He remembered that Han Zhao said that he would not get into trouble, but it seemed like Han Zhao's standard of trouble and his were very different. Han Zhao walked aside and called Bennett. "I have returned." Bennett breathed a sigh of relief and said with a hint of sorrow, "I've waited for you for so long." Han Zhao went straight to the point and said, "The shelter plan you talked about, what help do you need from me?" The meeting point this time was the first shelter that Darknet was building, located in a city ruins named Ruins of Lloyd in a wasteland in the northern continent. It had once been the financial center of a dead nation in the northern continent. Han Zhao sat in Bennett's private helicopter. When he looked down at the city from the sky, he could see the building process of the shelter. The Darknet symbol was painted on the wall in dark red together with the new name of this city, Bennett Sanctuary 1. "You named the shelter after yourself." Han Zhao patted Bennett's shoulder with a smirk. "I didn't know you're this shameless." Bennett slapped the palm on his shoulder away and said, "Let's go. Come to the high-ranked officials meeting with me." "What has the meeting got to do with me?" Han Zhao asked in surprise. Bennett shook his head and laughed. "You're a high-ranked official, too." Han Zhao blinked. Bennett cleared his throat and said, "I strongly recommended you to be a director personally. You won't disappoint me, will you?" Darknet had recently reconstructed their high-ranked officials, with the highest ranking being the founders such as Bennett, and one level lower being the various directors. "What are you talking about?" Han Zhao asked with a serious face. "When did I disappoint you?" Bennett did not know whether to laugh or cry. He led the way, and Han Zhao saw the construction of the shelter at a close range. "Sanctuary 1 is our test. I've put in plenty of resources, and it's progressing quite well. The basic layout should be completed within a year. The 6 nations' resources can only support 2 to 3 sanctuaries," Bennett said with his hands behind his back. "My plan is to build at least 3 to 5 sanctuaries across the continents. That will be outrageously expensive. This sum of money is insignificant when it comes to preserving our civilization." "Wow, I could almost see the halo above your head," Han Zhao mocked. Bennett's mouth twitched. After arriving at the new fortress, directors of the Darknet gathered in the meeting hall. They stood up and bowed slightly to show their respect when Bennett and Han Zhao walked in. Black Phantom had displayed his strength and was now the top fighting force of Darknet, and with Bennett's support, the high-ranked officials present all agreed that Han Zhao's position was at the same level as theirs. "The construction of shelter has to start sooner rather than later. I have decided to commence the construction of Sanctuary 2 and 3 immediately." The high-ranked officials exchanged looks, and one of them asked hesitantly, "Mr. Bennett, wouldn't that be too much of a rush? Why don't we wait for Sanctuary 1 to be completed?" "Because we don't have much time. We need to speed up the progress. Sanctuary needs someone to be in charge." "Who will be in charge of Sanctuary 2? "Xena will be in charge of Sanctuary 2, Bennett said. Xena was currently the highest director of Darknet and had been recommended by many senior officials. Of course, no one opposed this decision. As for Sanctuary 3, Black Phantom will be in charge. Han Zhao's eyebrows shot up. He did not expect Bennett to trust him this much and let him be in charge of an entire shelter. The power of this was very huge. The directors were shocked as well. Black Phantom had just become a high-ranked official, and now he was in charge of such an important issue. It seemed to many that he was not senior enough to do so. Many directors wanted to object, but Bennett had already seen through their thoughts. One simple sentence made their mouths shut. Each shelter needs someone with extraordinary strength to guard. If any of you have the confidence that your subordinate is stronger than Black Phantom, feel free to object. Stronger than Black Phantom? The directors laughed bitterly. Across the entire Darknet, other than Bennett and 2 others who had already retired, no one could beat Black Phantom. Its location will be in Grey Metal Ruins. Hanzio thought that place sounded quite familiar, and then he remembered that Grey Metal Ruins was where he had set up his secret base. It was quite a coincidence. Bennett briefly explained the layout and that Hanzio's mission was to sit in, monitor the construction team, and when any threat arose nearby, he could settle it entirely by himself. You have triggered the Ranka mission. Seeing the mission requirements, Hanzio smiled. It was as he expected. As the person in charge of Sanctuary 3, his mission was construction, and the mission type was also a series mission that was divided into tens of requirements. Bennett cleared his throat and said, due to funding constraints, the resources are concentrated in Sanctuary 1 and 2. Therefore, there might be not as many people who will be working with you to build Sanctuary 3. How many? Hanzio suddenly had a bad feeling. Sanctuary 1 had tens of thousands of workers, so he would require a similar workforce. About 1,000. Hanzio squinted with an expression that said, are you kidding me? It's mainly because of the flow of the funding not reaching its destination, Bennett said awkwardly. This will only be the case for the first month. We will hire more people to help you afterward. Hanzio picked Bear Cub, who was sleeping on his laps, and threw it toward Bennett. Bear Cub fell onto the sofa upside down and finally opened its eyes slowly. Hit him. Hanzio pointed toward Bennett. Bear Cub blinked in confusion and only understood after staring at Hanzio's finger for a very long time. It then turned over and slapped Bennett's left cheek. Bennett laughed bitterly. He rubbed Bear Cub's furry buttock, then pushed it aside and said, I know it's difficult, but you're the only person that can help me. No one else has the ability to. Hanzio pondered for a while before he nodded and said, no worries, I will be able to build a basic layout within a month. By the way, I have another requirement, Hanzio said. What is it? Bennett replied. Hanzio laughed and said, Sanctuary 3 has to be named after me. Since Bennett had already done that, how could the great mechanic Hanzio not receive the same treatment? And by naming the shelter after himself, it would definitely create a strong, long-term impact. He decided to appoint someone who was very capable to be Hanzio's assistant. Bennett looked around and said, Huang Yu, you'll help Black Phantom. The face of the guy called Huang Yu immediately dropped. He answered unwillingly, and when he saw the gloating faces of the other directors, he became even more unhappy. Among the directors of Darknet, Huang Yu was someone with very high capabilities. He was often entrusted with important issues as he excelled in taking care of all types of cumbersome issues and had always arranged them very neatly. Yet, this time, he had been appointed by Bennett to be an assistant. He was not happy and was not willing to do it, which would, of course, lead to him not taking things seriously. He had already decided to face Black Phantom lackadaisically and pass the 1 month without being serious. He took it as giving himself a holiday. A helicopter landed in Sanctuary 1. Frenzied Sword and Bun-Hit Dog walked out and looked around in curiosity. They trotted toward Hanzio with smiles on their faces as soon as they saw him. Frenzied Sword had a lot of questions to ask, but it all stuck in his mind when he saw Hao Tian, who stood on the side. God player Hao Tian, he exclaimed in surprise. Hao Tian gave him a faint look and did not say anything. Too cool. Wow, legend. Bun-Hit Dog widened his eyes and asked, did you trigger the hidden storyline as well? Hao Tian turned his head and did not reply. Bear Cub made a sound. Hao Tian immediately dashed forward and picked Bear Cub up. He took out tissues from his back with seriousness on his face. The duo suddenly understood why Hao Tian did not want to speak. They discreetly took a few steps backward. The smell was really bad. Seeing Hao Tian's serious expression and skilled actions, Frenzied Sword felt respect toward him. What a true legend, doesn't even change his expression. 3 days later, congratulations to the player for completing the first class advancement. Every player received a notification from their interface. The first player to reach LV21 in the level leaderboards, White Mask, was a foreign player. He shared the changes after his class advancement on the forums. The players on Planet Aquamarine was stunned. The ability that they had spent experience to learn was actually an ability that would automatically be awakened after class advancement. Was that bad? Many players did not think so. To learn a high-level ability in advance did not seem like a bad thing. It was a growth ability after all, and it had a very good effect. It could largely increase one's strength during low levels, which was very useful for these players who were discovering new locations. The people who really suffered were the players in the northern continent who only learned it at LV 18 or 19. They had wasted their money on an ability that they would very soon awaken upon class advancement. They were filled with grief. The southern continent players, who had been depressed for a very long time, suddenly realized that they were not the unluckiest, and they suddenly felt much happier. Although the truth was revealed, many low-level players still felt that it was worth it to learn this ability in advance. Therefore, many Andrea players were still waiting for Han Zio's arrival, but what they were faced with was only shock. Black Phantom had returned to the southern continent. He was not going to Andrea anymore. A new issue of Bun Hit Dog's Galaxy Exploration Journal was released. The video started playing, and Bun Hit Dog's bitchy voice appeared. Pure white legs and cherry red lips, rip your skin and harden your bones, take off these clothes and these pants. Drunk by choice but not by booze, cup of Viagra is all I need, I will last through the night. Hello everyone, welcome to the Galaxy Exploration Journal. Audience, this is me as always, the different kind of Bun Hit Dog. It was a standard procedure to always start with a poem every episode. The words used became more and more shameless. The large Bennett Sanctuary one came into audience's sights. Black Phantom brought us into a special scene going during construction. During this time, I discovered main storyline missions from Black Phantom. The audience discussed among each other within the comments. The players knew that Han Zio gave out main storyline missions, and the requirements for receiving the hidden storyline were very high. Could this main storyline mission be a different one? Darknet was building shelters, and Black Phantom had brought a group of 1,000 people to Grey Metal Ruins to build a city. This information had been gained from Han Zio himself. There were not any prior requirements this time. The mission could be triggered easily. The overcast of war obscured the blue skies like the wings of death, and the scars of the previous war have been torn apart before they could even heal. Only a few decades have passed, but no one has forgotten the pain that the war cast upon the land. Up till today, it is still affecting the ground under us and the skies above us. Radiation, specks of dust, wasteland, and dead nations. How ridiculous. After the old era, our civilian technology regressed. But the military technology that is used against our own kind has been advancing continuously. They fight for their ideals and the nation's benefits. They used iron and fire to spread death. For these empty and false reasons, they slaughtered those of their own kind who had no power to defend themselves. Countless people have been killed in the fires of war. The world became wounded and broken because of them, and it is on its way to the end. The ending of the world might quietly be upon us one day. The construction of the shelters is for preserving our civilization. Even if the world ends tomorrow, I still want to save the last bit of tinder for the civilization. I don't possess greatness, but too many are small. If no one wants to pay the price, okay, I will be the first. But I know I won't be the last. Han Zio's tone was filled with cadence. Didn't know you are this kind of Black Phantom. Many comments similar to this also flew on the screen. In the player's mind, Black Phantom was quiet and did not speak much, but this speech that he had given had turned this impression completely upside down. Many players felt more familiar with Han Zio. They had not expected Black Phantom's ideals to be this great. This paragraph had been copied from Bennett's speech in the future, and its intention was exactly to shock everyone. Back then, Bennett's position in the hearts of the players had been decided because of his noble ideals. Now that Han Zio had said it first, no matter what happened in the future, the players would be reminded of him when they brought up Bennett, which would make stronger impacts in the impression the players had of him, making himself more valuable. He knew that players liked to see such things. A character with noble ideals was usually very popular, and Bennett did not need to care about the players' impression of him, so Han Zio grabbed the opportunity. The next day, the construction team of Sanctuary 3 gathered. The enormous convoy crossed the desolate wilderness and disappeared over the horizon, leaving only dust behind. The convoy was equipped with a scouting helicopter that was flying at a low height. It was the ride for important personnel so that they could escape in the face of danger. However, Han Zio decided to take the car. Huang Yu, on the other hand, took the helicopter without hesitation. A notification popped up on the interface at this time. Current target, protect the convoy until it arrives at Grey Metal Ruins. Current population, 1,034. Upon arrival at the destination, 250,000 experience will be rewarded if the damage is below 20%. Mission grading will also be increased. Current grading, E. At around dusk of the first day after departure, at Han Zio's orders, the convoy found a safe terrain in the wild and settled down. It was dangerous to travel after the sun set, and many beasts were active during the night. Han Zio gathered the important people in the team for a meeting: Assistant Huang Yu, Head of Construction Kanai Fury, and Guard Captain Liu Zhao. The blueprints of the Grey Metal Ruins modification plan were laid out on the table, and Kanai Fury was speaking. The initial modifications of the entire city were estimated to be completed in 3 months, including weeding, getting rid of the beasts, cleaning of ruins, then completing the basic layout of the shelter, planting of the electricity network and water pipes, etc. But this is a plan based on 30,000 workers. We only have 1,000 in the first month. There's nothing we can do, not even cleaning the ruins. Kunai Fury sighed. Han Zio nodded without giving approval or denial. He looked at Huang Yu and asked, "Do you have any suggestions?" Huang Yu said perfunctorily, "No." Noticing the careless attitude of Huang Yu, Han Zio roughly guessed what he was thinking. But Han Zio didn't care about it. It was not like he needed an assistant. He turned his head and said, "Manpower is not a problem. I plan to complete the blueprint construction within a month." Kunai Fury was stunned. That will need at least 100,000 workers. Even Sanctuary 1 doesn't have that many workers. I have my ways. Han Zio did not explain his plan in further detail. Liu Xiao suddenly pressed his headphones and said hastily, "Mr. Black Phantom, an airplane is closing in. Let's go out and take a look." Walking out of the camp, the guards looked at the sky on alert. In the dark night sky, a large airplane flashing signal lights was heading toward them. Whether it was friend or foe was unknown. "It's okay," Han Zio smiled. "That's the airdrop I called." The plane flew past above their heads and dropped a few huge resources boxes that were tied together. The parachute opened, and it landed not far from the camp. The symbol on the boxes belonged to the Fabian Company. Han Zio made use of his relationship network and had Fabian's plane airdrop him a large number of mechanical parts. It definitely was not free, but Han Zio had a lot of money. Such a small spend meant nothing to him. Everyone was relieved upon hearing that it was a false alarm. Huang Yu was secretly surprised to be able to call an airdrop from the renowned munitions company Fabian. Han Zio's relationship network was broader than he thought. These parts were worth millions of dollars. Han Zio ordered people to load them onto the resources vehicles and started to build a large amount of machinery. He was very rich now, so he could build all sorts of combat machinery, and they could be used to protect the team as well. The desert far away suddenly turned into waves. A huge number of enormous beetles crawled out of the ground, each of them over half a meter long. They had brown and shiny shells, 6 feet and 2 claws. Beast attack. The alarm was activated. 300 soldiers immediately stood in position holding their guns. When they noticed that the sea of beetles had surrounded them from every direction and there was nowhere to escape, their faces became horrified and their hands started trembling. The desert blood shell crab was a strong predator in the deserts that destroyed every life form wherever they passed by, and there were at least 10,000 of them here. "Into the cars and drive open a path," Huang Yu yelled hastily. He then rushed up the helicopter and hurried the pilot to take off immediately. No one had the thought of fighting when they faced this many bugs. When they heard Huang Yu's order and were just about to enter the cars to escape, Han Zio walked out of the car and said, "Don't panic. Everyone stand in position. Get ready to face the enemy. The number of bugs is too huge," Captain Liu Xiao said hastily. "Our defense can't cover all directions. We will most likely suffer a huge loss if we fight. Black Phantom, come to the helicopter quickly," Huang Yu shouted. Han Zio waved his hands. Huang Yu cursed in his head. Seeing that the sea of bugs was coming even closer, he told the pilot to take off immediately without caring about Han Zio. The pilot was afraid as well, therefore, he followed the order and piloted the helicopter off the ground. The troops on the ground did not dare disobey Han Zio's order. They stood their ground and watched nervously as the swarm of bugs rapidly approached. At this moment, Han Zio took out his laptop and pressed a few buttons. 12 combat rangers drove out of the logistics vehicles as fast as normal cars. Everyone's face was filled with shock as they looked at these rover robots rapidly spreading out into all directions like guards of iron. The cold metallic color reflected the light shining through the leaves like pieces of golden scales. These rovers were the newest and improved Generation 2.5. Han Zio had leveled up the blueprint many times. Han Zio knew that it would not be peaceful during the journey when the mission notification showed up, so he had called for airdrop and built a lot of machinery over the past 2 days. Han Zio's building speed had become much quicker, and the rover robot that would have taken him days to complete at LV-20 could now be completed in just tens of minutes. When the building speed of a mechanic exceeded a certain limit, they would be able to build on the spot in the battlefield. With enough materials, weapons could be built non-stop. Only high-level mechanics could have this ability after learning. This was also a very important factor in the rise of mechanics in version 3.0. Unload all the round metal plates in the car and place them in every direction. The Darknet soldiers completely followed whatever he said. They immediately did as they were told and placed the 20-round metal plates on the ground. These were mini-folding batteries. Han Zhao had also leveled up the blueprints, and they now had smart firepower control. Seeing the thick, black, and long gun barrels, the soldiers felt safer. When the swarm reached within 400 meters, the Generation 2.5 rovers and the mini-batteries fired simultaneously. With the camp under the Barbara tree as the center, a storm of bullets bloomed toward every direction. The sound of fire was in sync, and the rain of bullets spread all over the place. In an instant, green-colored gunk exploded within the swarm as steel and fire penetrated the huge beetles one after another. In the face of the killing machines built by mankind, the shells that the desert blood shell crabs were so proud of were as fragile as eggshells. A trench had formed 400 meters away from the camp, filled with corpses of the bugs, stopping the swarm from moving closer. Even the desert was damped by their blood. After a round of fire, the swarm became at least a third smaller. A few rangers drove out of the camp. They were equipped with sunworm flamethrowers. The cone of fire covered the swarm, and the sound of bugs being burnt alive soon reverberated in the convoy's ears. The claws of the desert blood shell crab could not harm the platinum alloy armor of the rangers at all. With the fearsome firepower, it was a one-sided slaughter. This was the brutal force of a mechanic. Group combat was the advantage a mechanic had. Esper and Pugilist might be very strong fighters, but their physical strength had its limits. However, money was the limitation for a mechanic. Liu Xiao held his assault rifle all the time and waited to fire when the swarm entered the range of 300 meters. But the swarm was stopped at 400 meters away by the rain of iron. His hands were even tired from holding the rifle, yet he still did not see any need to fire. This firepower is way too strong. Liu Xiao looked at the batteries beside him that were firing bullets continuously. Their bolts moved front and back automatically. The bullet shells poured onto the ground. Some even hit his face. The people looked at Han Zhao, who was calmly smoking a cigarette, and felt very safe. They had been rather afraid when they left the sanctuary, as the wilderness of planet Aquamarine was filled with danger. But with the way they looked at it now, there would not be any danger as long as Han Zhao was around. Liu Xiao realized that the team of guards that he led had become the ones being guarded instead. An admiration toward Han Zhao blossomed in his heart. The mechanic class is actually this strong. Hao Tian contemplated as he held Bear Cub. He was a pugilist, and now he was unavoidably worried about his future in the pro scene. On the other hand, Frenzied Sword, who had been a godly pugilist player in Han Zhao's previous life, was even gladder that he had chosen the mechanic class. More material. Bunhit Dog's face was filled with happiness. He did not have to worry about finding contents for his videos as long as he followed behind Black Phantom. When they were just one day away from arriving in Grey Metal Ruins, the convoy set up camp. In the camps, as Han Zhao and Kanai Fury were discussing the blueprint, a guard came in to report. "Your Excellency, we captured a wanderer. He has been lingering near our camps. He had a double-barrel hunting gun, which had been confiscated by the guards." Upon seeing the camp that was filled with armed guards, horror showed on his face, and he started trembling. Before Han Zhao questioned, he explained in tremble and said, "I'm a wanderer from a nearby colony. I was out to hunt for food and coincidentally saw you guys passing by, so I wanted to take a closer look." Han Zhao touched his chin and contemplated for a while. "Liu Xiao, get him some food. Return to your colony and tell your people that my team will be building a city in the Grey Metal Ruins. We will provide a large number of paid jobs. They're also welcome to join us. Let your chief know my intentions. We hope they can move in and take residence." The heavy bag of food brought the teenager back to his senses. His face was filled with relief and surprise. He was a hunter of the colony. With very little prey recently, the people in the colony had not eaten much food and had been starving. This food could give them several filling meals. The teenager had been very scared when he was captured, but now that he had found that these people were not evil, he was much more relieved and started to consider Han Zhao's suggestion. Huang Yu thought that he had seen through Han Zhao's plan and thought to himself, he actually wants to hire wanderers as workers, but it's still too few. Han Zhao wanted to complete the basic layout of the sanctuary blueprint in a month, which needed at least 100,000 people. There were way too few wanderers for that. Huang Yu shook his head. "You have arrived at Grey Metal Ruins. Current population 1034. Damage 0%. Target complete. You have received 250,000 experience. Mission grade has become D. The main storyline mission that Hanzio had received was a large mission that oversaw the entire process. Therefore, according to the tens of building types that a sanctuary required, it was divided into tens of construction requirements. The current mission target changed. Current target: complete blueprint construction in 3 months. Current time: day 1. Suddenly, the noisy sound of human voices came from the front. The convoy stopped hastily. Thousands of people had gathered at the entrance of the abandoned city. "There's a problem." The guards got out of the cars immediately and surrounded the team in the middle. The group of people had also noticed the convoy and started moving toward them. The people of Darknet immediately recognized their identity by their strange clothing. Inhumans. Nervousness filled their hearts. Everyone felt a lack of confidence when they faced the mysterious Inhumans. Inhumans were much more dangerous than beasts because they could come back to life. Just by depending on the machinery that Black Phantom had built might not protect everyone. Wang Yu was shocked. So many Inhumans. Why are they gathered here? The organization sent people to the Grey Metal Ruins to investigate the terrain not long ago, and there was no one here. In Hanzio's eyes, the concentrated and large number of IDs above these players' heads made him dizzy. He then flipped the corner of the coat to the side and walked out of the car with a lot of style. He walked out of the crowd and stood at the front of the convoy with hands behind his back. Standing in between the two parties, his standing posture was like a javelin that pointed straight at the sky. A gust of wind blew on his coat, and it waved in the air like a black flag. Just with this awesome and stylish appearance, all eyes were focused on him. What happened next had the people of Darknet stunned. The Inhumans stopped as soon as they saw Hanzio. "I appreciate everyone's help. It's all to serve the people. Our convoy is going to enter the city. Please open a path. After we settle down, we will plan the construction targets of the city. There will be many job opportunities then." The players followed his order and opened a path in between. The people of Darknet opened their mouth very widely, their faces filled with surprise. These Inhumans have come here just to help Black Phantom. Since when did Black Phantom have so much influence among the Inhumans? I have to report this to Mr. Bennett. The convoy found a place and stopped before Kanai Fury asked hesitantly, "Your Excellency, we need to first clean out a place for a temporary residence. It's getting late, and it's best to complete that before dawn. We don't have much manpower, so we'll have to start now. You ask for help from the Inhumans." Me. Kanai Fury was a little scared. "I need some people to help me clear out a safe area nearby big enough for everyone to camp in temporarily. Since all of you are here to help, I would like to trouble you guys." These words triggered missions immediately. Every player received it. They split out within seconds and started work right away. The surroundings became a construction site in a flash. The cleaning of the area and eviction of beasts had started. Kanai Fury's face was filled with surprise as he did not expect these Inhumans to give him so much face. He turned around and looked at Hanzio. He knew that it was not him whom the Inhumans gave face to but this mysterious boss of his. With the help from the players, a safe area had been cleared out by evening. It was a stadium, naturally suited for camping, and the dangerous insects and beasts around had all been chased away by the players. The people of Darknet received permission from Hanzio and placed the mini batteries around the stadium for guarding purposes, and it attracted many players' curiosity. Thousands of players conversed with each other, many of them knew each other, and some people even started a store. The despair in the air of this abandoned city had been taken over by liveliness. A sound had appeared again in this ruins that has been silent for decades. One Hit Dog was instantly recognized. As the most popular video host at the moment, he had many fans, and they were very passionate. "Dog author, stop running. Reach out your head, I will show you something special. Taste the anger of Africans." Still not an update. "I'm going to break your leg." A group of fans filled with hatred chased after Bun Hit Dog while yelling. The other players gave them a path and rubbernecked from the sides. There were even people who started selling snacks. There was a loud commotion, and phrases like "kill him" could be heard multiple times, together with laughter. Bun Hit Dog did not forget to record even as he was running. He yelled at the camera lens, "This meeting has been going very well, the fans are very passionate. You know what they say, beating signifies closeness and scolding signifies love. I am indeed very pleased at heart. Come on, smile at the camera for your daddy." Bun Hit Dog turned the lenses to record the players who were chasing him, living up to the phrase "not knowing what death is." This was a well-known culture among video hosts. How else would they be able to capture moments that normal players would not be able to witness if they were afraid of trouble? The players outside the camps were joyous, but Frenzied Sword was facing a very important and serious decision. He had successfully advanced his class and was torn between the three paths: Cannon Master, Mechanic, and Mechanical Pugilist. The power of mechanic that Hanzio had displayed was scarily strong, but Frenzied Sword was more interested in mechanical pugilist personally. His intuition told him that the mechanic path was not suitable for him. Hanzio had given him a suggestion before as well, saying that he had more potential in close-ranged combat, which hinted that the mechanical pugilist path was more suitable for him. In the center camp, Hanzio looked at the blueprint on the table and wondered how to maximize the advantages of the players. His mission reward limit had increased. His single mission reward limit was a little more than 60,000 experience, coming up short of a C-ranked mission with 80,000 experience. For such a large mission like constructing a city, his own quota was insignificant. Thus, Hanzio pondered carefully and decided on the way that he was going to distribute the missions. That was to divide the construction of Greymetal Ruins into many different departments to take charge, then assign one person to each department who would be responsible for the distribution of missions. That way, he did not have to use his own quota. Although Hanzio was considered to be rather easygoing, no one had forgotten the fact that he was one of the strongest in the organization, a legend who had killed countless people and had the top spot in the current killer leaderboard. Hanzio then names the heads of departments. Huang Yu was not mentioned. Huang Yu was happy that he had nothing to do. Although thousands of Inhumans had come to help, it was still far from being enough. It was impossible to complete the basic layout in a month, so Sanctuary 3 would still end up doing it the regular way and take months to complete its construction. By then Sanctuary 1 would have long been completed. As an assistant, he really did not have many benefits, so he did not even plan to help. The meeting was coming to an end. When Hanzio had finished clearing up all the responsibilities of the various departments, his face then turned very serious, and he said in a low voice, "I've said all the things I needed to. Now, there's this extremely urgent mission that must be done first." Seeing the seriousness of Hanzio's face, everyone became nervous as well. Hanzio looked around the table and said seriously, "When you write the name of the sanctuary, remember to include my name." The tightened expression on everyone's face instantly collapsed. The heads of the various departments left the camp and organized their men orderly, following Hanzio's instructions. The long-awaited players immediately rushed over and triggered different city construction missions based on their own likings. When the players and the Darknet construction team was busy with the construction, Hanzio received a call from Maple Moon. He remembered that he had given her a mission to find him when she reached LV-20, so he brought her into the camp. After a long time apart, Maple Moon looked left and right curiously. Hanzio also called the other 3 players. He was going to give these 4 some extra missions. These 4 people all had their own uniqueness, and they could assist Hanzio in different ways. They stood in front of Hanzio and looked at each other. As the only female player, Maple Moon received special treatment. The other 3 nodded toward her as an act of showing friendliness. "Ah, so cute." Maple Moon stared at Hao Tian with sparks in her eyes. Her expression looked so thirsty it was like she was going to eat Hao Tian alive. Beads of sweat rolled down Hao Tian's forehead. He stood straight and still as he watched Maple Moon dashing toward his arms. More specifically, Bear Cub, which he was holding. She rubbed and stroked Bear Cub and would not let go. Bear Cub was very confused. It shrank into Hao Tian's arms and gave Maple Moon's fingers a few light bites. "Aw, this is way too cute." Stars appeared in Maple Moon's eyes. She looked up and pleaded with Hao Tio, "God Hao, can you let me hug it? Be clear next time." Hao Tian's expression was stiff. He immediately passed Bear Cub to Maple Moon and took 2 steps backward in relief. Bun Hit Dog came over, too. He reached out his fingers and teased Bear Cub. Bear Cub was cute and stupid, so its reaction was always a second slower. Its paws kept slapping away the hand that rubbed his butt. Frenzied Sword stood on the side and looked straight at Hanzio all the time, looking like he was always awaiting an order. "Enough, enough, stop playing with my bear." Hanzio coughed to stop them and said, "I'm building a sanctuary. You guys go help too." As he was speaking, he designed extra missions for the 4 people, which gave them bonus rewards if they complete a certain number of missions from the various head of departments. Other players did not have this kind of special treatment. Hanzio only did this because these 4 were his people. Naturally, the 4 did not have any objections. They accepted the mission and walked out immediately. In his previous life, Hanzio had started playing during version 1.0 as a completely new player. He had also chosen the mechanic class and had experienced losing streaks during PvPwn. There was a time when he had lost hope in the mechanic class despite how much he liked the class, and he had almost even changed his account. Then, later on, during the pro competition in version 3.0, Maple Moon became a completely unexpected black horse in her first competition, which signaled the rise of mechanic class and gave a lot of encouragement to Han Zio. He had even been a fan of Maple Moon for some time when he was young. Later, when he got more and more skilled, he became one of the masters that represented the mechanic class. Although he did not become a pro player, legends of the great mechanic Han went around. Great technician Han grew stronger with time. But Maple Moon was like a comet, leaving an unforgettable mark in the milestones of gaming history, then soaring through the sky and disappearing in a flash, only shining during the third and fourth versions of the game. Maple Moon was a casual player after all, so her skills in PK grew at a very slow pace. Not everyone had so much interest in improving in a game like the great technician Han. In the later versions, Maple Moon disappeared from the pro scene. It was said that she had discontinued the contract with her club, so her light only lived in the memories of the old players. These more than 20,000 Inhumans could almost match up the manpower of 70,000 to 80,000 workers, and even more Inhumans were coming. Completing the basic layout of the sanctuary in 1 month didn't seem impossible anymore. When the entire construction team realized this, they all became extremely motivated and gave all of their effort in the construction. If Sanctuary 3 could be completed even before Sanctuary 1, it would be a huge contribution that would shock the entire organization. In only 3 days, the camp had a complete makeover, rough houses were built. All the people of Darknet had a roof above their head. Huang Yu loitered outside Han Zio's house for quite a long time, then finally made a decision and knocked on the door. Squeak. The door opened. Han Zio appeared in sight wearing a mechanic working suit. "Your Excellency, I wish to help you take care of some matters. I'm your assistant after all." As players became more and more, Huang Yu shockingly realized the 1-month plan really had a chance to succeed. And once it does, Sanctuary 3 would be the first completed sample. This contribution would be extremely huge. And even as an assistant, he could be written in the Darknet's Book of Merit. Huang Yu couldn't sit still anymore. He would regret his entire life if he let this credit slip pass. He felt that he's already offended Han Zio because of his perfunctory attitude earlier, since Han Zio didn't assign any mission for him. Seeing that Huang Yu was very nervous and fidgety, he finally said in a slow tone, "Didn't you not want to do anything? I understand Mayan gave you a holiday. Are you not satisfied with it?" Your Excellency, I'm your assistant. I could contribute something as well." Huang Yu wiped his sweat and said sincerely. Han Zio folded his arms and looked at Huang Yu meaningfully, but didn't say anything. Seeing this, Huang Yu's heart kept sinking. He felt that this credit would probably have nothing to do with him anymore. Unexpectedly, Han Zio turned around, took a stack of documents and threw it to him, then said, "These are the construction progress of the sanctuary. Go through and arrange them. Report to me if there's anything." Huang Yu held the documents and immediately felt more energetic. He stood up hastily and said, "I will ensure these are well taken care of. Go." Han Zio waved his hands and went back to work. Sanctuary 3, West, Clock Tower area. A team with 5 players was walking in the drainage pipes of the river. It was pitch black. The only light was from the flashlight. "It's quite smelly here." A player held his nose and said, "They said the electricity network will be planted here, so they needed people to scout the area to see if there's any danger." Another guy said, "No wonder no one wants to do this mission. It's too dirty." This guy seemed like he had mysophobia. He was walking very carefully. Even after decades, this drainage pipe was still damp. The floor was very sticky, almost like rotten mud. The team of players took a few more steps forward. Suddenly an inhale that sounded like a wind tunnel appeared from deep within the dark. Something's wrong. The player was shocked. Just as they were about to move, they realized they were unable to. A notification showed on their interfaces. "What is this?" The expression on their faces changed. Boom. The ground shook vigorously. A black shadow that filled the entire tunnel dashed towards them in an extremely high speed. With a loud bang, the team of players flew away like they were hit by a train. They bashed against the wall and died instantly. They were not the first batch of players, but they were level 15 and yet they died with just one hit, which means the damage was at least 200 to 300. Like furious tanks, they bolted up the ground and headed towards the most conspicuous building, the clock tower. The players resting in the clock tower were met with a sudden situation. They all stood up and tried to stop the shadows, but anyone who did it ended up flying away and dying. Unstoppable. A large number of shadows scraped through the players and destroyed the unfinished power generator. It exploded with a loud boom and fire broke out. An hour later, the fire in the clock tower area was finally extinguished. There were burn marks everywhere. The unfinished power generator had been completely destroyed. The area nearby was fenced off. Huang Yu took charge of the scene that was in a complete mess. Fortunately, the players did their best to clear the ruins. so the situation was slightly under control. The loss of construction materials and engineering machines was not the most important problem, but the construction period would be largely slowed down if there was no solution to these beasts. What is the species of these beasts? It's still under investigation, but they are hiding in the drainage pipes that we have no knowledge about, so it is very dangerous. Able to crack open the brick floor with their feet, which means the leg power of these beasts is very high, and they are monstrously heavy. Likes to live in damp and dark places, lives in a herd, aggressive. Han Zio took out his laptop. He searched through the Planet Aquamarine Beast database and found many matching species. After some thought, Han Zio lifted up his coat, and about 7 spider detectors slid down his legs and landed on the floor. They slowly crawled into the tunnel and started surveying its internal structure. The image of the tunnels was relayed by the spider detectors. The walls were covered in a strange mucus in the deep area of the river tunnel. It was sticky and looked disgusting, and it was dripping continuously. Scientific name: Nigero shadow viper beast, also known as shadow stalker viper. Adults can grow up to 4 meters long. Usual forms of attack are through its claws, tail, and teeth, and it is able to secrete a type of corrosive slime from its mouth and anus, which is used to dig its nest. It likes dark, warm, and damp places, usually underground near volcanoes. Other than not having a bug that jumped onto people's faces, this thing looked really alike to Aliens 1. Han Zio suddenly noticed something abnormal. Despite the fact that shadow stalker vipers like hot environments, they are still attracted to the underground of the flatland, which should be cool and damp. That is really weird. Could it be that there is abandoned reactors or high energy waste underground? Come to think of it, the corpses and eggs of shadow stalker vipers are both used in manufacturing drugs. Han Zio's eyes twinkled, and a plan formed in his mind. Huang Yu was actively giving suggestions on the side and said, "I think we could use a large number of explosives in the empty spaces underground to create a landfall and destroy the shadow stalker viper's nest. Shadow stalker viper would turn extremely aggressive if they were disturbed, and by doing so would lure them out of their nest. Han Zio could then plant traps in advance so that he could deal a large amount of damage once they were lured out." He immediately gathered all the patrolling Generation 2.5 Rangers around the river tunnel before ordering the people of Darknet to move the mini batteries over and lay out a battle frontier that aimed at the river tunnel. Throw in a flashbang. Han Zio gave a mission to Frenzied Sword. Frenzied Sword dashed in immediately without saying a word. A huge number of shadow stalker vipers galloped out of the tunnel. They were covered in black carapace and had hideous bone spurs. At least 100 shadow stalker vipers showed up. They noticed the group of humans gathered far away instantly and stampeded over with a loud growl. The next second, they were faced by a thunderstorm of bullets and cannons that overturned these shadow stalker viper and stopped them from charging any further. The steel core bullets penetrated and tore open their chitin carapace. Thick and sticky bodily fluids splashed all across the place as growls turned into wails. They struggled to stand up but were beaten by the hail of bullets pressing them against the floor and shattering them into pieces. The corpses of shadow stalker vipers were all over the ground, shattered into pieces. The faces of many players who were watching turned pale. They were disgusted by this image of monster parts scattered all over the floor. Collect the corpses and keep them in the frozen storage, Han Zio ordered. Everyone clean the battlefield quickly. Han Zio gave the flashbang mission to Hao Tian this time, but the shadow stalker vipers did not fall for it again. They killed Hao Tian and stayed in the nest, refusing to come out no matter what. The players had been watching for quite long, so it was time to give them something to do. "I need some people to clean this nest within 3 days, Han Zio yelled. He then set the mission quickly and gave it out. Prize pool mission, clean the nest. Many days had passed since Han Zio had last issued a prize pool mission, and he realized that prize pool missions were the easiest way to draw out the players' enthusiasm. And as he expected, the rubbernecking players immediately dashed toward him to accept the mission. The prize pool accumulated more than 1 million EXP very quickly, and it was still growing. The mission requirements were to hunt down shadow stalker vipers and bring back their eggs. These 2 tasks would give them contribution points, and the 10 teams with the highest contribution points would be rewarded. The players were all excited and ready. They swarmed into the nest to kill shadow stalker vipers, making up for their difference in strength with numbers. Han Zio turned and said to his 4 spare tires, "Take this device and detect the radiation strength of the nest. At the same time, be wary of any strong shadow stalker vipers. That will be the Beast King. Notify me immediately if so. Also, if there are any other discoveries, let me know as well." Shadow stalker vipers are too strong for the players at the moment, But in order to reach higher positions in the prize pool mission, they will definitely have more demand for better weapons. There will definitely be someone who is interested in my group of mechanical guards after seeing them. Hanzio had more than enough spare parts to build and sell weapons to earn him another fortune. This again showcased his innovative business philosophy. If customers don't have a demand, just create one. Some players finally came to visit during the evening. Jade Green Sky brought a group of guild members to visit. They expressed their intention of wanting to buy equipment. A large number of players resided in the sanctuary at the moment. Players could be seen all over the place requesting to team up and do missions. Many mechanics opened up stalls for repairing, building, and enhancing services, and even Maple Moon would sometime open a stall to pass the time. Jade Green Sky had bought a light mechanical arm when the public launch had only just begun, and it was his main weapon even now, so he was very confident in Hanzio's products. After some consideration, he also added Iron Fist, mounted heavy mechanical arm and mini maneuvering equipment into his store. He had a lot of blue quality products for these two types of machinery, which he had no use for, so this was a chance for him to get rid of them and gain some profit at the same time. However, he did not sell compounded magnetic chain split blades. This was almost god-tier equipment for the players in the early stage, so Hanzio did not want to sell it to players easily. The people of Sky Territory took a deep breath when they opened up the store. The huge variation of products had their hearts beating faster, and everyone's eyes twinkled brightly. God, even the lowest quality is green. There is even some blue quality equipment. I have never even seen blue equipment before. All of them are so tempting. Jade Green Sky stared at the heavy mechanical arm with excitement. This thing was stronger than the light mechanical arm. It could largely increase his strength. He looked at the price, 120,000. So expensive. Jade Green Sky's face twitched. Although the guild was rich, 120,000 was still a significant amount. It was the price of dozens of firearms and many boxes of gunpowder. After some hesitation, Jade Green Sky decided to buy it. He believed that it had more worth than anything else he could buy with that money. Frenzied Sword and the other three returned right after Jade Green Sky left, bringing along new discoveries. We have detected a very high radiation strength, almost reaching the maximum on the measuring device, Maple Moon said and passed the device back to Hanzio. Hanzio was a little shocked. With such high radiation, creatures that lived near it would very likely go through mutations. Whether the mutation enhanced one's strength or the other way around depended on the species and habits of the creature. We have also discovered the source of the mutation. It's these things, Frenzied Sword said as he took out a bag of blue crystals and laid them out on the table. The crystals were filled with mist and cracks. They looked very turbid. The blue crystals reflected a mist-like aura from the light. They looked magnificent and almost magical. Where did you find this? On the walls deep inside the nest. Hao Tian gave a very simple answer. Frenzied Sword added, these crystals were embedded in the wall. We wouldn't have found it either if the slime on it wasn't scraped off during the battle. Furthermore, these crystals became more concentrated as we went deeper into the nest as did the monsters. We were unable to go even deeper, so we came back early. Hanzio could feel the warmth from the crystal itself even with gloves, which solved one of his questions. These crystals provided the heat energy that made the Shadow Stalker Vipers build their nest here. Hanzio waved at Frenzied Sword. Without a hint of hesitation, Frenzied Sword walked toward Hanzio, who suddenly did something shocking. He grabbed Frenzied Sword's mouth and stuffed the crystal into it. Then he blocked his mouth, not letting him spit it out. Swallow it. Frenzied Sword's face was filled with shock. He struggled all he could, but Hanzio's hands did not budge even an inch. Then, the crystal went down his throat. The three people watching from the side were stunned. Any reactions? Hanzio stared at him. Frenzied Sword let out a sigh like he accepted his fate. He touched his chest and looked at his interface. You have swallowed a type of high radiation strength crystal. Race detected, human. Endurance is less than 50. No related ability gained. You have entered the radiation damage state. Radiation damage, minus 33% maximum health, minus 33% maximum stamina, minus 50% across all attributes. Hanzio gave a large amount of experience to Frenzied Sword as a reward and said while nodding, well done. Frenzied Sword felt much better when he saw the experience. He looked at the rest of the crystals on the table and pondered, will there be more experience if I eat all of them? It actually tastes like sweets. Hanzio knew what Frenzied Sword was thinking from the expression on his face. He awkwardly collected all of the crystals, denying Frenzied Sword's thoughts. Purifying this type of radiation crystals would create crystal-formed energy, which was a form of clean energy. Hanzio had a thought. There were a lot of such crystals in the nest. He could use to purify them and turn them into energy storage. And these energy crystals could even be used on all kinds of machinery if he made an energy transformation device. It was a valuable discovery. At midnight, players continued to fight in the nest as they did not need to sleep. The prize pool mission motivated the players. Although there was no direct mission, they still received quite a lot of experience from killing the Shadow Stalker Vipers, which were a much higher level than them. Sky Territory was at the top of the rank. Quickly, T3 pull the monster. T1 and T2, come back here now. Pugilists attack at close range quickly. Come on Spurs, last longer. Go to the side to recover if you're out of energy. Mechanics don't go too close, stand further away to deal damage. Those carrying eggs leave quickly. Don't get hit by the fallout. The people of Sky Territory were surrounding a Shadow Stalker Viper and took it like a boss. Jade Green Sky was commanding and yelling, and they were having a very exciting time. The cooperation of Core Team 1 was very in sync. The slime in the nest would lower the player's speed. But although the nest favored the Shadow Stalker Vipers, it still was a fish in a net when facing the core team of Sky Territory, which was extremely experienced in fighting bosses. The Shadow Stalker Viper could not break out of the net no matter how it tried, and its health was decreasing at a steady rate. Killing Line 1. Everyone, deal damage now. All kinds of attacks downed on Shadow Stalker Viper. Its carapace started cracking, and slime splashed all over. Jade Green Sky charged forward. He wore a heavy mechanical arm much thicker than his hands on his right arm and activated the active ability of the heavy mechanical arm. The motors made a loud noise. Heated steam shot out of its ventilation pipes, and the iron fist hit straight at Shadow Stalker Viper's head. At the same time, Jade Green Sky shouted out loud with passion. Iron fist burst. Jade Green Sky took a deep breath and looked at the damage ranking. He was unexpectedly first once again. The damage of the heavy mechanical arm would not be exceeded easily by the players at the moment. The heavy mechanical arm also had very high armor stats. It can even be used to withstand damage from the monster. Several times, they had been in danger of being wiped out, and it was Jade Green Sky who had saved the situation. While the other players got wiped out once in a while, they had not died once. Thus, their contribution points increased steadily, and they reached rank 1. Buying this weapon was more than worth it. Suddenly, the sound of a piercing wind echoed from further down in the tunnel. Something was approaching at very high speed. A shadow passed by them in an instant and created a strong gust of wind that almost made everyone in Sky Territory lose their balance. It was so fast that they could not even capture it with their eyes. No one could see what had passed them. What was that? It disappeared in a flash. Jade Green Sky looked in the direction where the shadow disappeared and said with surprise, "That's probably toward the deeper part of the nest." Everyone exchanged looks of surprise. "Let's follow and take a look." The speed-reducing slime was everywhere in the nest. They chased for a while, but that shadow was long gone. Wait, what's that? Someone noticed something abnormal. The flashlight shone over, and a pungent smell entered their nose as they saw the carcasses of Shadow Stalker Vipers all over the tunnel, and extending all the way into the darkness. It was a shocking view. The carapace that players tried so hard to penetrate looked as fragile as eggshells. The carcasses were still fresh, which meant the shadow had gotten rid of all the beasts obstructing his way within the short period of their chase. The LV-40 beast herd did not stop him for even a second. Everyone instinctively thought of Hanzio. It was Black Phantom that just passed by, right? The monsters we took so long to beat were killed by him within seconds. He's definitely at max level. When the players scanned Hanzio, the information they got was always all question marks except the danger level being. People had tried guessing his level, and now that they had something to compare with, they had a more accurate deduction. Two Shadow Stalker Viper pounced out of the darkness, where the human eyes could not reach. However, the mechanical suit radar had detected the vital signs and heat energy long ago. Without dodging, Hanzio activated enhanced mode, and the biological muscles under the armor swelled up. Power surged from his fists and smashed straight at the Shadow Stalker Vipers. Devastating strength difference, shattered carapaces, splashing slime, and screams of pain. Claws hit on the mechanical suit and only left a string of sparks. He looked at the map on the screen and confirmed that he was on the right route. The screen showed that the temperature on the outside was increasing. The crystals contained heat, so the higher the temperature, the more likely it was that the Shadow Stalker Viper Beast King would be living nearby. Passing through a cave, the space suddenly became much larger. A thick, pungent smell filled the place, and slime on the ground was thick and dense. This was an underground cave that looked like a honeycomb. The walls were embedded with large, dark blue radiation crystals, surrounded by more than a dozen entrances of a tunnel that lead to many places. This was the center of the nest. Dense red eyes blinked in the dark. Dozens of shadow stalker vipers lay low on the floor and bared their teeth, demonstrating their authority over the unwanted guest. There were also a few more frightful-looking elites in the herd. The Shadow Stalker Viper Beast King was the most conspicuous one surrounded by the herd. It was 3 times larger than the others. It looked down on Han Zio with condescension as the slime in its mouth dripped down onto the ground, corroding the floor and emitting a pungent odor. It's so big. It has to be the Beast King, Han Zio thought. The Shadow Stalker Vipers pounced toward Han Zio fearlessly. The electromagnetic hover boots allowed Han Zio to ignore the slimy terrain and move freely. He dodged the attack and took out the ghost sniper rifle from his back. Blue flashes appeared on the muzzle as needle magnetic bullets were being shot out rapidly. He changed targets continuously. Doing so was to keep triggering, which did not trigger on the same target within 5 minutes. This talent was more useful during group combat, and the right way to use it is to keep changing targets and maximizing the damage output. The Shadow Stalker Viper Beast King growled. The sound waves echoed in the nest, summoning their own kind. The players in other areas realized that the Shadow Stalker Vipers that were fighting them stopped simultaneously and dashed toward the center of the nest without looking back. Han Zio saw the attributes of the Beast King from the interface. LV-53 boss, very high dexterity and endurance, but only 9,000 health. This health amount didn't match up to its boss status. Is it one of those dexterity type Beast Kings that are more focused on attacking? But it doesn't look like it with such a huge size. The Beast King rolled over, but unexpectedly, it did not pounce over immediately. Instead, it ran to a corner of the cave and took many large bites into something stiff. Beasts consuming wastes in long term would very likely induce mutation, or they would gain a special ability. He realized that the Beast King's health was recovering at a remarkable speed, gaining back 1000 HP within seconds. Clearly, consuming waste materials quickly recovered its health. This environment had put him at a very bad disadvantage. He took a deep breath and adjusted himself to his peak performance, before jumping up high into the air and flying over the herd in an arc, slamming on the back of the Beast King with a huge amount of energy. Upon impact, they both rolled over. Before standing up, Han Zio bent his fingers, and blades shot out. He stabbed them into the Beast King's carapace, and at the same time, he activated the thermoelectrical incisor gloves and burnt through the carapace. Suddenly, the wind whistled. His back was hit by the Beast King's tail. The ground shook. Pebbles fell down like rain. The man and the beast collapsed the wall and fell onto the tunnel on the other side. The Beast King growled, wanting to recover health in its nest, but Han Zio grabbed onto it tightly and pulled it outward. With his basic combat skills all being at max level and the performance enhancement from Viper, Han Zio's close-range combat ability was way above average. The Beast King's health very soon arrived at the killing line, as it was unable to eat waste materials and regenerate. Han Zio's energy flew into compounded magnetic chain split blades and formed a high-speed spinning pointy cone around his arm like a drill, piercing right into the Beast King's head. Ignoring the whale, Han Zio grabbed onto the wound to not get dropped by the struggling Beast King. He then turned on the sunworm and sprayed at the bloody brain of the Beast King. A smell of burnt meat spread in the air. The Beast King's body suddenly became stiff, like a fish out of water, giving his last struggle before death. You have killed Shadow Stalker Viper Beast King. You have received 132,000 experience. As soon as the Beast King died, the surrounding Shadow Stalker Vipers growled in agony and pounced toward Han Zio dauntlessly, wanting to shatter this enemy that was harder than iron, submerging Han Zio instantly. But the next moment, a strong repel force pushed all of the Shadow Stalker Viper away at a speed even quicker than when they attacked. They hit against the wall of the nest as the field repulsive machine on Viper's arms made a buzzing sound. Boom. This repulsion force caused a chain reaction, and the nest started crumbling down piece by piece. The ground was shaking so rapidly that it was like an earthquake. The West City area collapsed. Cracks opened from the sunk ground, and dust splashed out from within. Some players got buried and died. Some players escaped and watched the scene, stunned. Han Zio was only responsible for dealing with the Beast King. The other small monsters were to be dealt with by the players. The sound of cracking came out of his neck as he twisted it to relieve his tight nerves. Huang Yu brought some people over and waited on the side. When the Inhumans are done the cleaning, you guys go dig through the ruins. Bring the radiation crystals and the carcasses into the warehouses, especially the Beast King's. That's rare material. Although I broke quite many parts of it, it should still be of some use, Han Zio said casually. Huang Yu took a look at the sunk ground, gulped, and nodded hastily. Half an hour had yet to even pass since Black Phantom came, and he had already settled the problem. Even though the West City area had almost been destroyed, this astonishing efficiency left Huang Yu in complete awe. At around midnight, Huang Yu finally came with the information that the cleaning of the ruins was completed. We have stored 846 Shadow Stalker Viper carcasses. 27 of them are mutated, and one is the Beast King. More than 300 undamaged eggs have all been stored in the frozen warehouse. Also, we have collected about 2 tons of radiation crystals. The 300 pounds that were collected near the center of the nest seem to have a higher concentration. By the way, Kanai Fury has discovered the source of the crystals. These Shadow Stalker Vipers have been consuming high energy waste as their food source. The slime secreted in their bodies has gone through special reactions, which caused them to harden and thus become crystals. Han Zio was stunned for a second. So, these radiation crystals are actually Shadow Stalker Vipers' feces. You could say that. Han Zio scratched his head and thought of Frenzied Sword. Never mind. The truth is too cruel for me to tell him. I don't think he can take it. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.